Well, good evening, everybody. Happy Monday to you all. And I can see we will continue to have more and more people pop on as we go. And I know folks are going to be calling in. In the chat section right here, you will see that there are dial-in numbers. Share that with your folks. Pass that along. We want to make sure that we get as many people as we possibly can to join this call. So again, make sure you're sharing this with your team. Get onto Facebook, say this is what you're doing, take a picture of your screen, all that other good stuff. But we really want to get folks on this one because I think it's going to be a really special one. Couple of housekeeping things before we go along. Do me a big favor. Go up in the top right-hand corner of your screen here, and I want you to push where it says speaker view. Push that instead of gallery view, because what you want to do is you don't want to have the Brady Bunch looking screen where you can see 16 different people because it will be distracting. You want to be looking at the person who is actually talking. And so make sure that you are doing that. Also, another housekeeping note, make sure you have one of these and you have one of these. They're going to be really important tonight because there's going to be things every time that I hear from and talk with our special guest. You can bet I always come away with at least 2 to 3 pages of notes, typically more. So you want to do that. You want to be able to absorb. You're going to want to read back through your notes a lot of times, maybe highlight some stuff, go back and listen to this recording and watch this recording again, and even take better notes. Because the way I look at it is anytime you have the opportunity to learn from someone else, you need to be taking notes, because that is information not only that you can use and apply and take action, but that you can teach your folks as well. And then you are the expert, right? They don't have to know where it came from. So anyway, I digress. On these calls for the last 7 weeks, guys, we have been extremely fortunate to get through this Master Series training and to bring this to you. And we've had people from the likes of Chris Reed and Danielle Natoni, who did an amazing job about teaching us about social media. We had Mark Briggs talking about how this is just much more than a business opportunity. It is a life-changing opportunity. And of course, we had Melissa McAllister and Stephanie Richardson joining us to share their expertise, to share their knowledge and what has made them uber successful with all of you. So I couldn't think of a better way to round this whole Master Series training up than to actually have a true master on the call, and someone who I definitely look up to. Now, let me introduce him properly, and I tend to do this to try to embarrass him a little bit, but frankly, I can remember back, it was several years ago, before he was ever with the company, and we had a gentleman who was the president of our network by the name of Brett, excuse me, I just completely had a complete brain hiccup, and I can't remember Brett's last name. It's been a stressful last couple of weeks. Brett Blake. He had 2 first names, and he was a great friend, and I just completely forgot about his name. Anyway, and he called me one day, and he goes, "I'm super excited, Robert." And I was like, "Why? Why are you excited?" And he called me on the blue. I mean, it was weird to get calls from guys at corporate sometimes, but he did it, and Jeff does it too. And he goes, I'm over the moon excited. And I'm like, "Why are you over the moon excited?" And he goes, "Well, I always, somebody came up to me and said, if there was somebody that you would love to be working with, who would that be?" And he goes, "Man, there's just one guy, but there's no way we would ever be able to get him here. He's just too good. He wouldn't, and I'm like, "Oh, really? Who is this guy? I mean, what are you talking about?" He goes, "Man, do you know who Jeff Hill is?" And I went in and immediately Googled Jeff Hill and came up and read about him. And he goes, he told that person, Brett said, "I told that person who Jeff Hill was, and that's who I'd really love to have." And they go, "Well, as a matter of fact, I think we can talk to him." And anyway, as the story goes, Jeff came in, met with Brett Blake, and the rest is history. And we've been extremely blessed to have him as a Team Beachbody vice president, now president of the network, and we are super excited to have him. And I love that I can not only call him a mentor and someone whom I look up to, but also call him a good friend. And so, Jeff, I'm excited to have you on the call, and cannot wait to hear everything that you have to say and what you have to share with the team.
So does that mean it's my turn?
Well, no, I'll keep talking. No, yes, it is your turn, Jeff. Welcome to the call, brother.
I just made my mind up that for whoever's going to speak at my funeral, you're going to be one of them. So
I mean, I've got some experience with that in the last week and a half. So
no, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hey, we can laugh about it.
Well, so
I've got to mute everybody's line again.
Okay.
I don't know why it's doing that, but go ahead. We're good.
Well, hey, listen. First off, Robert calls me a friend. I think that's probably the highest praise I can get. The thing that I love about this business is the fact that we're building a business. Yeah, we're changing lives. Yeah, we're doing a lot of things, right? But as you know, it's a relationship business, and this is a business where some deep relationships and friendships are created. And I feel like, just for those that know me, I get a little sappy sometimes. And from the standpoint of this, I love what I do. I love the people that I work with. And I count it a tremendous blessing in my life. And I mean this from the very, very bottom of my heart, that I get to work with people that I like, with people that I respect, and people that are mission driven, that want to do good things, want to do right things. And it's not often in life that you get to align what you do and the things that you place great value on and get paid for that, and get to do great things and rub shoulders with super people. So I count it as a great blessing in my life. I also just want to thank Robert for inviting me on this call. These calls are special to me, and that may be the wrong word, special. But we do the National Wake Up Call, and it's one of those things where you're on a phone and you pick up the phone and you kind of I yap, and you're talking to a lot of people, but there are no faces. I can use my imagination. But what happens when you get on one of these Zoom calls is that I guess I'm a bit like a voyeur in a way, right? All of a sudden, I'm not a voyeur. Okay, let's just put that off the record. Let's undone. Okay, that's not the case. But here's what happens is that I get the opportunity to look at people's faces. I get an opportunity literally to look into your homes and kind of just, sometimes it's cool because, you'll see the naked kids running by, hopefully no naked spouses, anything like that. Tommy Migrant would be known to do that every once in a while with tight shorts on, but other than Tommy Migrant, I don't know who else would do that. But seriously, it gives me an opportunity to look into people's eyes and to look into homes. And it reminds me every time that I do this, what a courageous business this is. And that this is a people business, and it's people that are everyday people that are living life, and that you are squeezing, fitting, somehow with tremendous courage and hope, fitting this business, this opportunity, and changing other people's lives into your lives, and doing your utmost to make a go of it. And so it's a bit of a humbling thing for me, because again, the connection's a little deeper. So there's a million things that I could there's a million things that I could talk about, and so I will. Okay, and Robert, I don't know if at the end if they want to ask some questions, which I'm always happy to ask questions. Those are like the best, but it can be a little crazy with this many people. But I'm going to refer to some notes as we go through this. So because I like to kind of call on some people that say things a lot better than me. But let me just start with a couple of quotes that I really like and that frames what we want to talk about. Maybe let me just begin with the end in mind. That's an old Coveyism. Is if I were to get off this call, at the end, if somehow I could wave my magic wand, okay, over everybody on this call and say, okay, was this call a success or wasn't it a success? How I would gauge the successfulness of this was that you would look at yourself a little bit more realistically, a bit more truthfully, and that you would realize that there's probably a lot more capability, capacity, and talent within you to develop some great results. And that as a result of that, that you would take what you learned. There are people that know how to build this business better than I do. I've not been out in the field, but what I have, to Robert's point earlier, I've been lucky enough to have had enough experience that I've seen people who have succeeded, and I'm a great student of watching and observing and trying to figure that stuff out, and then understand that principle, and then that principle gets applied to the practice of what you do every day. And if done consistently, that's where success lies. And it's a quote today I actually shared on the National Wake Up Call. It's, there's the quote that says, the best way to predict your future is to create it. And that's very, very, very true. And that starts with vision, and it starts with, envisioning what you want. But it's built at the end of the day, not on your vision. It's built on the habits that you develop and the discipline of executing on those habits. And I'm already off script where I was going to go on this. But as I start this, and I've shared this on a little call we did last week, I'm reading this book right now called The One Thing. And I would encourage everybody to pick this up. Maybe most of you have heard of Keller Real Estate. And it's one of the largest real estate companies in the world. And Gary Keller co-authors this with this Jay Papasan. And the tagline on this is, the surprising truth behind extraordinary results. And very honestly, there's not a lot in this book that is probably brand new, other than this piece of developing a focus and focusing on the activities and the behaviors that will create great results in your life, and how to get there. And as I started to read this book, I started to go, again, for me, I started to realize, okay, I need to refocus my life. I need to refocus my vision. I need to refocus the things that I'm doing to get greater results in this business. And many of you know, right now, we've from a management team, we've started messaging a little bit this concept of we've got to get back to basics. We've got to get back to simplicity. We've got to get back to the things, that brought us to the dance kind of a thing. And that really is not, it's not the message that there's not a business opportunity that's really rewarding or that you can't focus on this. But it is the message of we need to be helping people. And we need to be helping people throughout their journey. And that's where the opportunity is created. And as I started reading this book, I've written up on my board this kind of like, what's the one thing? What's the one thing in my life and every day that I need to focus on that is going to create the greatest results? And it's that focus that's going to allow you to get greater results. So I'm going to go through quickly a couple of pieces that I think are kind of principles that maybe you'll get some notes from, as Robert suggested, that you can take and say, hey, I'm going to pivot off of those things to take back to my business to get results. But remember this, as I look at each one of you, no one's going to build this business for you. No one's going to create your future for you. It's going to be created by you taking your God-given talents and your God-given abilities and how you develop those and how you apply those consistently over time. With that, Anthony Robbins said, I believe life is constantly testing us for our level of commitment. And life's greatest rewards are reserved for those who demonstrate a never-ending commitment to act until they achieve. This level of commitment can move mountains, but it must be constant and it must be consistent. Here's the kicker on this. As simplistic as this may sound, it is still the common denominator separating those who live their dreams and those who live in regret. And what is that again? It's the level of commitment, the constant, and it's constant and it's consistent. One other quote from, this is an old guy, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. So spell that one if you will. But the principle that he says is great. He says this, until one is committed, there's hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there's one elementary truth. the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid ideas. And it's this, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur that would never, ever otherwise occur. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it, but you must begin now. If there's hesitancy, there's always that opportunity to draw back, and there's ineffectiveness because you're not all in. Here's something that I've learned this makes me sound old, and I'm not, okay? But here's one thing that I've learned in business and that sometimes create hesitancy. Oftentimes people are looking for the grade A strategy, okay? They're looking for the perfect solution. They're looking for the thing that's going to be perfect before they go. They're always getting ready. And I've learned that the key to success in business is that a grade B strategy, okay, with grade A execution always wins out over a grade A strategy with B execution. What does that mean? Sometimes what we do is we keep waiting to get it perfect. We keep waiting to get it perfect, and then we never act. The key, the greatest growth strategy that you can create in your business, the greatest growth strategy that you can create for the people that work with you is your willingness and ability to move. It's just to move, to get going, because if it's in the harmony with any principle of physics. If any of you've ever been on a wave runner, if any of you have ever been if you've ever tried to ski, snow ski, you know that you can't turn, you can't direct where you want to end up unless you're moving. And it's the same way with your business. You've got to be moving. I'll never forget the first time I took my baby girl Maddie up on the ski slopes, and she was the cutest ski bunny, and had great equipment and was ready to rock and roll. But she was paralyzed on this mountain and wouldn't move. And I kept saying, this is where you want to go. You have to be going down. You have to be moving before you can start to turn. And it wasn't until she started to move that she enjoyed the thrill and some skills. Okay. We got someone on who needs to mute of really moving their business forward. So that number one, that's the growth strategy. So here's a couple of pieces that I would suggest to you as you start to be forward. And there's going to be 6 quick pointers, okay, on this. And then I'm going to end with a little story if I can. Okay. And then if we have time for questions, we can, or you can just say, man, it's late out here. I'm going to bed. Okay. The first is this. In beginning and in moving, you need to be gutsy and you need to be bold in how you begin. And I realize as I look at some of the faces here that I'm talking to seasoned, grizzled, veteran coaches, that have got some miles on them. And I say that with all due respect. But the trick is that sometimes we have to re-begin and we have to restart. So first one is be gutsy in how you begin. Because if you have audacious action, that becomes an energizer to you, and it becomes an energizer to the people around them. William James, the father of American psychology, said this: 3 rules if you want to change your life. 3 rules. Start immediately, do it flamboyantly, and no exceptions. And if you'll do those things, immediately, flamboyantly, no exceptions, those are the pieces that will, they might create a little bit of an air of drama, but it's like you've bet everything. You've gone bold on this thing. I was stupid enough, okay, one of the bucket list things for my life, okay, that I set a long time ago, over 20 years ago, over 30 years ago, that's older than some of you guys are, was to run a marathon, okay? I've got horrible knees, I've never done it. And I'm now at a ripe old age, and I'm just going, I'm never going to be able to run it. But I made a goal for this year, and I put it out there that I'm going to complete. I don't know that I'll run the marathon, but I've made a goal that I am going to complete a marathon. And I'm going to go the distance on high water if I have to walk or do whatever it's going to do. And the fact that I've gone public on that, I'll tell you what, this morning or today I went out at noon and I ran. And it was one of those pieces, it was just, I've got my knees hurt, but it was like the energy of knowing that I've gone public on something a bit audacious about it has been an energizer. So be audacious. A guy from Harvard, who we don't care what his name is, said this: the people who change best and fastest are those who have no choice. And so, as you look at where your situation is, once you go bold, okay, you've created a situation where you have no choice. So the question is, what are you going to be bold about in your business, and how can you be gutsy? The second piece is this: you need to leverage your big winning behaviors. It's the Pareto principle. If you know what the Pareto principle is, it actually talks about it in this book again, but it's the argument that 80% of your performance gains, the rewards that you get, will come from 20% of your growth efforts. Okay? It's the concept that means that's why we have the 3 vital behaviors. Very short. Those are the activities and the behaviors that will create the greatest results. Here's the principle underlying this. Not everything matters equally. Not all activity or behavior will create the greatest results. And what you have to have the discipline to do in your business, with all of the bells and whistles and shiny objects that are out there, if you want growth, what you've got to do is to narrow down and spend really 80% of your time on those 20% of the behaviors that will create the greatest results. And it's not being busy. It's not being responsible. It's not kind of getting ready again. It's the results that count. And so you've got to focus on those activities and know what they are, and then engage in them. And it goes back to that old quote that I say a lot of times, the successful people are willing to do those things the unsuccessful aren't willing to do. Here's the key piece. It's not that they like doing them any more than the other guys. It's that they know that they're critical to success. Okay? You may not like doing them, but they're the pieces that will drive success. And in our business, very honestly, candidly, it's about sharing. It's about inviting. And even as we talk about our 4 vital behaviors, I would argue that even out of those 4, the most important is sharing, inviting. That's where the rubber meets the road in our business. If you're not doing that, your business won't grow. That's where you learn. That's where you apply. That's where what you've learned in your personal development. That's where being proof the product works comes into play. That's the culmination, but that is the piece that will give you the greatest results in your business. So, if I were you, okay, and even as you're engaging in part of your personal development, one of the things that I would engage in is not just how do I say this? Not just the feel-good personal development stuff. We can read lots of those pieces, I think, that are key, that fill our spirit, that talk about integrity, that talk about value, and those are all pieces. But part of personal development is skill development. And part of that should be focused on how to share better, how to be a better inviter. I can see Tommy Migrant's face on my screen. I just want to just grab him by the ears and kiss him. But, way back when, not really, way back when, as for 4 years ago or something, Tommy introduced to the business, that what was kind of new to a lot of people, this idea of forming, and that was a piece all about developing good relationships. That piece that he introduced has been expanded upon, but it was because of his learning, because he was willing to kind of reach outside just out of pure personal development that was feel-good personal development, and jumped into skill set. So push yourself to do some other things, but I would suggest learning how to leverage your big behaviors, which first and foremost is inviting. The next one is this, number 3, use it or lose it, okay? Here's the principle on this. The pace of growth and your ability to learn and grow, it starts to pick up when you engage yourself more fully. And every one of us, okay, I don't have a lot of skill sets or abilities, okay, but one of them that I have is, I believe, kind of the gift of intuition and the gift of discernment about what gifts people have. And I could sit down with each of you for 5 minutes, I bet, or 10 minutes, and I could look at each one of you and start to talk to you and quickly determine that each one of you has a certain set of skill sets, abilities. You can call it divine DNA. You could call it just embedded, skill sets or ability. But what your role is to find what those gifts are. Biblically, it'd be the parable of the talents. Okay, and I believe that part of your responsibility on this good old earth is to find out what those skill sets are, what those talents are, to dust them off, to scrape off the rust, and to dig deep and find what they are. And then you use those talents to help you, your loved ones, and other people. And the more you will use those strengths and those talents, okay, the more they will multiply. But the converse is true as well. The less you lose them, the more quickly you don't use them, the more quickly you will lose them. And so it's like most things. Either you're moving forwards or you're moving backwards. And if you decide to wait, okay, and kind of just mess around with it, the less you'll have to work with, okay, with the rest of your life. So there should be a sense of urgency there. I mean, if you believe that you have something there, and I think you all know you do, the faster you discover what those are, and that may mean asking trusted people around you, finding out what gives you passion, finding out what gets you excited. Like for me, for example, I am not a financial guy, okay? I am not a sit behind the Excel spreadsheet and run numbers, okay? Can I do it? Absolutely. That's not my strength. And so what I've had to learn to do in my life is develop the pieces that I do extremely well and then surround myself around with people that do the other pieces well. And that doesn't mean that you're an incompetent leader. It means that you may be incomplete. And being incomplete is great, okay? If you know what your strengths are and you're leveraging those and you surround yourself with people that back up your other skill sets or your other things that you might be a little bit weaker in. So you need to discover what your strengths are, you need to use them, and then you need to keep applying them. And if you feel like you're not growing right now, seriously, here's a gut test right now for you. If you feel like you're not growing, then what that really is indicating to you is that you are not using your talents and you're sitting on your potential, or you're not putting it to work, okay? So if you're feeling that way, then that might be a, hey, you know what? Maybe there's some real opportunity with. So you've been blessed with gifts. Are you leveraging those, and are you using them to the full extent possible? Use it or lose it. And in your business, once you do that, that will become a magnet. That will become an attractor for other people, because they're going to see that you're passionate. That brings energy to your life because that's what you're doing well, and people will be drawn to you because of that. So outside of yourself, there's a business purpose. This one is a little bit redundant, but it's this idea, number 4, be sharply pointed rather than well-rounded. I used to think growing up, I want to be this well-rounded, guy, that can do a little bit of everything really well. And I've learned in life to be successful, again, this idea, you've got to be sharply pointed. You've got to be sharply focused. And again, I keep locking on Tommy because he's like right here in the middle of my face. But, football team or basketball team or any kind of team, if everybody was just mediocre at every position on the field in everything that they do, and they all did the same kind of a thing, you'd have, at best, a mediocre team that really wouldn't have great results. And that's why they have skilled players, and they get focused, and they become the best at what they do within their skill sets. So what you've got to do, you've got to take those pointed skill sets, and then you've got to get sharply focused towards the results that you want. And this is stuff that you guys know. From the standpoint of where you want to take your life, you've got to get laser pointed and focused on what that looks like. Because the minute that you do that, and I say the minute that you do that, everything gets clear, and all the stuff that doesn't matter starts to sweep off to the side, because that results focused channels your energy, it compresses your energy, it contains it. And that's, again, another one of these, just principles of physics, of science, is when you channel and compress things, there's a power that comes from that. And again, that becomes contagious to the people around you. So if your goal, if it's rank driven, if it's whatever that might be, if it's financially driven, if it's, we have a little group that we call the Hill Climbers. That we have a small group of people, and Robert's one of the people that was on that, and we were talking about creating, what your vision really looks like and what the impact of that could be. And oftentimes these people would come back with kind of, well, I want to help people, I want to do this, I want to get out of debt or whatever. Those are great, but you have got to narrow those things down to, for example, how many people do I want to impact? How many homes do I want to change? How many people do I want to help get out of debt? Okay, and that's kind of projecting outwardly. Or when do I want this to happen? It's got to be laser focused, because if you're well-rounded, what's going to happen is there's just too many choices and too many things will creep in to your business. But that simplicity is empowering. So it will also require that you have to trade off some things, okay, in order to achieve that focused result. And here's the interesting thing about focus and about results, and I think most of you guys know this, is that you're not going to give up the stuff that doesn't matter. The greatest challenge in having focused results is not giving up stuff that's obvious to you. It's going to be giving up good stuff in your life, okay? It's going to be giving up stuff that does matter to you in some regard, that's good. But you've got to remember that good is the enemy of the best. Just being good or hanging on to those goods sometimes will stop you from becoming the best. So you've got to give up good things to get the best things that will help you get the greatest results. Okay. Number 4 is you've got to stretch out when resistance hits, okay? Now, what does that mean? Resistance is going to come your way, okay? And it's going to smack us as it has. It's going to smack us all right in the face. And sometimes, it comes from externally, but most often the resistance that we confront comes from right within ourselves. And those are the moments of truth in your life, okay? There's another great book that says, that's called Change Anything. And it talks about crucial moments and critical behaviors, the vital behaviors, about identifying when the resistance comes, what are you going to do? What critical behavior are you going to engage in that will overcome that? So, for example, right now, I'm on the 21-day fix, okay? And I am a sweet tooth guy, okay? I love ice cream. And I just happen to have a daughter living with us right now. Her husband just graduated from Tulane in law school and his MBA school. And he's here in Utah. He's studying for the bar. And they're living with us. And she is supposed to have a baby on this coming Thursday, okay? So she has these cravings. And it just so happens that her cravings are ice cream. And it's this daily ice cream that every night she's got to have it. And it is like, get behind me, Satan, kind of a deal. It is like the piece that I want more than anything else. And I've just learned that at that moment, when that happens, I have developed an exit strategy to make sure that I am not there, so I am not tempted to do that. Now, that's kind of a silly example. But what you've got to expect in your own life and in your business is that resistance is going to come. And you should get to know what I would call it's the enemy within and how resistance operates. I'm going to read something here because I just love the way they say this. You might as well start out expecting to cause trouble for yourself. As soon as you kick off growth efforts, resistance will probably rear its ugly head. The first step towards overcoming it is not to let it take you by surprise. Just as you would expect to feel stiff and sore if you begin a new exercise routine, count on feeling uncomfortable with your beginning efforts at fast growth. Resistance is a con artist. It tries to make you believe that sticking with your growth plans will be too painful, too difficult, not worth the struggle. And I love the way he says this. It wants to sweet talk you into selling out your future for a little immediate comfort. But just like stretching out and continuing your physical exercise helps you work out muscle soreness, hanging in there with your growth program pushes you past resistance. And then remember this very important point. Resistance grows stronger with any evidence of weakening resolve. Resistance grows stronger with weakening resolve, but it also yields to renewed effort. Okay? So you've got to know that it's coming, you've got to have a plan to attack it, and you've got to have a renewed effort, because the minute it senses resolve or weakening resolve, you're in trouble. So it's psychological warfare, but it's there, and you have to expect it to come and know how you're going to deal with it beforehand. Okay, maybe the last kind of point, then this little story, is that you got to do it. Okay, you got to learn on the fly. And I know that I'm talking to people that have already accomplished a certain amount in their business, but you guys all know this principle that you've got to be moving. And it sounds easy on the surface, but even as we start down the journey of reinventing or recreating ourselves, we fall back into that con artist, of getting ready. That gives us the feel of progress and of activity that's doing the right things. But it's like I said earlier, the primary growth strategy, the 80% of the results will come from you moving, because you will figure out everything else on the way. I have lots of favorite sayings, but again, one is sometimes you just have to leap and build your wings on the way down, or you could say on the way up. But every time in my life where I found growth, where I've hesitated, I've learned I've just got to jump in and do it, and I'll figure it out. You're smart enough to know that you're going in the right direction. You can course correct as you get going, but you've got to have an action-based strategy. So even if you may not know all of the answers, the key piece is to get going. Dr. Phil on Oprah Winfrey, I remember 15 years ago, made some comment like this: life rewards action. Okay? And it's a very, very simple, little piece, but it is so true that you have to be acting. So 6 little bullet points, okay? But all kind of simple, all maybe a little bit rah-rah, but from the standpoint of taking one of those things and putting it into place, that's what I've seen successful businesses being built on. It's this willingness to be moving, and again, to be failing forward, and to be curious, and then to be applying and failing forward again. And that's who people want to be around. That's what leaders do. At the end, they're willing to put it out there. In their lives, they're willing to be bold. Okay, they're willing to be audacious. They're willing to create a vision for people with clarity of what they want out of life, of what's acceptable to them and what's not acceptable to them, and being clear on those pieces, even when people disagree. They realize they've got to push through stuff. On one of these calls that I had with Robert, we talked. It's a lesson for another day. It's a little piece called "The Crucibles of Leadership," which is a great lesson on leaders and how they learn from their mistakes. But I want to end with a story that I think is great. And it's, I do these, a call like this, and sometimes it goes, yeah, Jeff, life's easy. It sounds, you've kind of, it's all butterflies and unicorns and whatever else is, fancy, fun stuff. And I get that it's not easy. Okay. Life, I get, believe me, I get that life is introduced into our lives and that we have to deal, with stuff. And we have stuff, in our life, and so does everybody. But maybe here's a great lesson. I don't know how many of you know who Isaac Perlman, but I'm going to introduce one of the world's greatest violinists to you for a second and tell just a quick story. So, and I'm going to read this, so make eye contact with my forehead. For those unfamiliar with Perlman, he is an Israeli violinist who at the age of 4 lost use of his legs due to polio. Shortly thereafter, he began violin lessons, and by age 10 was performing in concerts and recitals with the Israel Broadcasting Orchestra. After winning a talent competition to appear on American television, he obtained scholarships and awards that allowed him to stay in New York and study at the Juilliard School. He made his professional debut at Carnegie Hall and had engagements with many orchestras, American orchestras, including the New York Philharmonic. Perlman toured native Israel in 65, performing concerts throughout, made his British debut in 68. He is known for his brilliant technique, direct interpretations, and precision and detail, and enjoys an international reputation as an outstanding violinist. So with that little background, okay, what that all says is the guy was really, really good, okay? That's what I was really trying to say. So here's the story. On November 18th, 1995, Isaac Perlman came on stage to give a concert at Avery Fisher Hall at Lincoln Center in New York City. If you've ever been to a Perlman concert, you know that getting on stage is no small achievement for him. He was stricken with polio as a child, and he has braces on both legs and walks with the aid of 2 crutches. To see him walk across the stage one step at a time, painfully and slowly, is a sight. He walks painfully yet majestically until he reaches his chair. Then he sits down, slowly puts his crutches on the floor, undoes the clasps on his legs, tucks one foot back, and extends the other foot forward. Then he bends down, picks up the violin, puts it under his chin, and nods to the conductor and proceeds to play. By now, the audience is used to this ritual. They sit quietly until he makes his way across his stage to his chair. They remain reverently silent until he does his clasps on his legs. They wait until he's ready to play. But this time, something went wrong. Just as he finished the first few bars, one of the strings on his violin broke. You could hear it snap. It went off like gunfire across the room. There was no mistaking what the sound meant, and there was no mistaking what he had to do. People who were there that night thought to themselves, we figured that he would just have to get up, put on the clasps again, pick up the crutches, and limp his way off stage to find another violin or else find another string for this one. But he didn't. Instead, he waited a moment. He closed his eyes and then he signaled to the conductor to begin again. The orchestra began and he played from where he had left off. And he played with such passion and such power and such purity as they'd never heard before. This is emotional for me, sorry. Of course, anyone knows that it's impossible to play a symphonic work with just 3 strings. I know that I know that, and you know that. But that night, Isaac Perlman refused to know that. You could see him modulating, changing, recomposing the piece in his head. At one point, it sounded like he was detuning the strings to get new sounds from them that had never been made before. When he finished, there was an awesome silence in the room. And then people just rose and cheered. There was an extraordinary outburst of applause from every corner of the auditorium. We were all on our feet, screaming and cheering, doing everything we could to show him how much we appreciated what he had done. He smiled, wiped the sweat from his brow, raised his bow to quiet us, and then he said, not boastfully, but in a quiet, pensive, reverent tone, "You know, sometimes it's the artist's task to find out how much music you can still make with what you have left." What a powerful line. It stayed in my mind since I've heard it. And who knows, perhaps that is the way of life, not just for the artist, but for all of us. Here is a man who's prepared all of his life to make music on a violin of 4 strings, and why all of a sudden in the middle of a concert finds himself with only 3 strings. So he makes music with 3 strings, and the music he made that night with just 3 strings was more beautiful, more sacred, more memorable than any he had ever made before. So he had 4 strings. So perhaps our task in this shaky, fast-changing, bewildering world in which we live is to make music. At first with all that we have, and then when that is no longer possible, to make music with what we have left. I love that story because it really is the story about life, and it's the story about businesses. And I think the message there is a couple-fold. Each one of you, each one of us is on a different journey. Each one of us is running a different race with different headwinds, with different challenges, with different, whatever it might be. Okay. But your responsibility, okay, your role, okay, that what people count on you for, families, loved one, yourself, is to make music with all that you've got. It's developing that ability, and then it's playing, as best you can. And so, my goal here is we end this, is that, regardless of where you are, that you'll push yourself. And like Perlman, that when stuff happens, that you don't walk off the stage, okay? That you stay engaged, okay? That you keep playing with what you've got. And maybe you've got to detune, that you've got to modulate, that you've got to figure it out on the way. But that is the way that extraordinary lives are lived and extraordinary performances are created. And that's the way to lead your life. And when you do that, people will want to be drawn to you and be part of who you are and what you have to offer. And that is the piece that's going to matter most. And just maybe ending over time, Robert, but I just got to tell you from a company standpoint, we're a little bit in a slow time right now. And I look at that and I just go, okay, that's business. That's part of it. Business is about figuring out the slow times. It's about coming up with new solutions. It's about, oh, we lost one of the strings, so let's figure this thing out and pick ourselves up. It's not a time for me that scares me, that bothers me. It's a time when I just go, okay, we respond, we don't react to it. We pick up the pieces, we simplify, we do the things that we do best. We look at our skill sets, we look at our talents, and we go. Seriously, we are the best home-based fitness company in the world. We offer better solutions than anybody out there. I mean, and I sound like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, okay? Because I'm a corporate guy. I do drink the Kool-Aid, okay? And I drink the Kool-Aid because I like it, and I believe in the Kool-Aid. And I've seen other companies. I've seen people, companies that have failed because what they sell isn't real. Their magic sauce isn't real. What we sell is a real solution to people getting real results in their life. And so long as we continue to keep that focus, as long as we keep pushing and getting better at that, the rewards will be there. There are people that want what we have. And we have chosen not another channel, but you. We want to reward you for sharing that story and those results with other people. And so long as we keep that at the core of who we are, keep first things first, keep the main thing, we are going to be in great shape, and your business will be in great shape as well. So, Robert, that's all I got. So,
and that's more than enough. All you got is, I mean, that's amazing. And there was stuff that I was going to go through and say at the end of that, but I'm like, I choked up a little. I mean, I can't follow that. I got nothing following that. And
we're over time, right?
What's that?
It's because we're over time.
Well, no. I here's my deal with the whole time thing. Okay. We've gone on for over an hour on these calls before, and people will stick around when there's value. And I promise you, there's extreme value in everything that you just shared. And I bet everybody to a person on here that if you're looking at everybody, they'd be shaking their head. Yes, I got a lot of value from what you gave. And I could always, and my favorite thing when I know there's that you're really getting across to people is when I see people doing this. And I saw a lot of people doing this, and it wasn't because they were sleeping. It was because they were writing stuff down. So I
haven't seen the heads come up though, so that's a little concerning.
It's whenever they pop up like this, that's where you got to be a little bit worried. But no, Jeff, that was amazing. And one of the things that I want to challenge the folks on here to do is to, just like you said, to take the information, because we can have all these notes all we want. And just like Jeff said, that knowledge is great, but knowledge without action is dead. And it's just a waste of time. And so this last hour that Jeff spent talking with you, actually 45 minutes that Jeff spent talking with you, is all for naught if you don't do what he talked about it, which was 80% of your results is from action and doing it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And you just do it. And that's one of the things, like you talked about with Tommy and the 5-step invitation process, and we started doing that. We didn't go through 17 different iterations of it to get it implemented. He just did it, and it worked. And it was adopted, and it worked. And it's the same thing goes with everything else we've ever done with this company in the last 10 years is, you know what? Sometimes we roll it out, and we figure it out on the way down. Or the way up, just like you said. And that's what I love about it. And quite frankly, what helps to keep me young, sometimes gives me gray hairs ahead of time, but it helps to keep me young. It helps to keep it interesting, and it helps to keep it fun. So, Jeff, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think I speak for everyone that is on the call and that will be watching this recording later on. We want to thank you because I've always said that no matter what I believe in most about this company are the people who are driving the ship. I mean, yes, we as the people in the field, as the coaches, we have a lot to do with the motion, and we're the engine of it and make the tires move. But you guys are the ones that are helping to drive it and steer it in the ways that we need to go. And I can't think of a better group of people led by a person like yourself to do that, and whom I trust. There's nobody that I trust more than you. So I appreciate you being on the call. I appreciate you sharing this with the team. I think this has been amazing. And the only thing that I would have wanted more out of this is, instead of, we topped out at like 73 people on here, I wish we'd have had 7,300 people on here, but then I think Zoom would have gotten on to me. So anyway. So thank you so much for being here, my friend, and God bless, and say hello to your wife and family, and a healthy baby coming in on Thursday, and our prayers be with you all for that, and hope you get to enjoy that, and it's been great.
We'll be good. All right, thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great night, guys.
Take care, brother.
Okay, bye-bye.